So hello and welcome. I'm very happy to open this first panel of this conference. Alongside me, there is a parliament member, Orit Farkash-Hacohen. She's the chairman of the Committee of the AI and Advanced Technologies, and the former Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, which is extremely relevant for this conference. And alongside you, there is Dr. Yaara Waltzman. She is a researcher of artificial intelligence from the Center of Digital Innovation in Cambridge University, Mr. Michael Eisenberg. He is the Venture Capital Foundation Aleph member, and he wrote a book, The Tree of Life and Money. So we did talk about that many times already. So this panel will be focused on high tech, and we did talk about the importance of high tech for the day after. But Israeli high tech is in some kind of quite complicated corner at that point, exposed to different challenges recently because of the judiciary overhaul that created a little bit of a havoc, I must say, and built some, and the 7th of October, obviously. So we're a little bit on quite a junction, I would say. In addition, obviously, as Ariel mentioned, the superpowers that are battling, a global, obviously, battle doesn't contribute to this particular topic. And Ariel would like to quote you, allow me to quote from the memo. Ariel writes, the human capital, Israeli human capital, did responsible for the unprecedented breakthroughs. But we're in the midst of the concerning change of tendency. And I would like to start this panel with Yaara. Allow me to ask you what Israel is not doing right. Where is our problem? It's a very short answer, I guess. So first of all, hello, all of you. I will start with the very fact that the reason we are here, all of us, we know that Israeli high-tech is extremely important for Israeli economy. And in fact, that's what actually holds together Israeli economy. In 2022, the high-tech, in fact, the whole field of high-tech was 18.1% of the GDP of Israel. So there is tremendous importance to the GDP, and Israeli economy is dependent on high tech. And the tendencies and trends that you mentioned were still impacted by COVID. There are so many different global processes that influence our current condition that do create this negative impact upon the current stage of high tech in Israel, but we're still impacted by COVID. All the processes that began in COVID still influence us. In this sense, the investors from outside prefer to invest elsewhere in the safer places at that period of time. So there was a global high tech crisis that didn't happen just in Israel. In addition, obviously, there were additional ramifications that you mentioned. Some of them you didn't. I will not review all the processes, of course, but we can spend hours talking about that. But of course, now we are in the midst of war. It's a very challenging crisis, of course, which also influences the aspect of investments, the foreign investments into Israel. You did mention a little bit the tip of the iceberg indeed, but we're well aware of the fact that majority of the investments are in fact foreign investments, foreign investors that are not as happy to invest into an economy in the midst of warfare and the higher risk, uncertainty, and etc. In addition to this aspect and this process that we're currently facing today. And it's important, of course, in this context to mention the governmental investment into Israeli companies and into high tech in Israel. In fact, we do more than 50% arrive from the foreign investors. So Israeli economy dependent upon the foreign investors. That from one hand, it's lovely. Of course, the state of Israel is a very attractive country in this sense. We do see this entrepreneurial spirit and innovation and the audacity, especially during those days, in fact, of the war. So in this aspect, of course, we can see that there is quite an outburst of innovation during this crisis of warfare. But in addition, I do think this is, in fact, part of the matter, the dependency of the foreign investors on this aspect of the state of Israel. In fact, investing in significant amount into R&D if you compare it to other OECD countries. So there is also an important aspect of governmental investment that is underinvested, and another process we'll be definitely discussing today is the AI, artificial intelligence. The consumers in the world are hungry for AI, the private users and companies as well. And Israel, well, it's very strong in certain traditional fields, which is fintech and cyber. and various corporate software. But I think there is exactly the place for us to start to invest into strategy and policy, to invest into AI, to expand our investment, the governmental investment into artificial intelligence. Obviously, I'm well familiar with the national program of AI, which is, of course, quite an achievement for the State of Israel. Almost all the countries in the world indeed did generate a national program of artificial intelligence. But here it was, I would say, slightly too late, and the scope of the investment into AI is insufficient indeed. That's true. If I understand you correctly, it's money. Since we're a small country, we can't really cope with those tremendous budgets that other countries invest. Hundreds of billions of dollars. Why can't we actually say that, yeah, well, that's what we can do. Let's just, settle down for that. So it won't be on top of the summit of global technology. Well, AI is an actual revolution. We cannot allow ourselves to stay and behind. It's like an internet revolution, just to compare. And for this particular aspect, indeed, there's no reason for us to stay behind. In fact, we talk about the human capital. I don't like the term human capital. I would love to call it innovation and creativity and Israeli spirit of innovation. We see that during war, and we see so many different projects that are popping up. And if we will not get into the game, it's a high risk for us than not. Again, I'm not even talking about the regulation and other aspects, but I talk about being part of the game of AI on a global level. What will happen to us if we will not jump on this wagon of AI? There are obvious abuse of AI, so many positive aspects in this field. Of course, efficiency, streamlining of work processes, increase of the level of the quality of outputs when we use AI. But obviously, if we will not benefit from it, will not arrange some kind of strategic plan for a long term, then we might be experiencing an abuse of AI. All the risks we're all familiar with already at that point will be a violation of ethical rules, for example, privacy breach, and other risks of that sort in the field. But again, when we talk about here in the context of this particular panel, so there are other problems, in fact, corporations, for example. The moment we are not part of the game of AI and we don't generate a strategic plan, there's a certain risk we won't be able to create corporations with the other players in the world that are already quite advanced when it comes to regulation arrangements and a program on a national level in this field, and then we won't be able to cooperate on a more efficient and beneficial level. And we can't really avoid conflicts with other countries. So obviously, the attempt that the companies will have to invest in order to cooperate with others will be tremendous. It will be actually a redundancy indeed. We do have a national program, but it's yet not aligned with the other plans, for example, the European ones. So then companies that are working here in Israel will have to, in fact, forced indeed to create some kind of alignment and amendments of the program that exists here towards in order to fit the non-Israeli national programs. And this is a redundant effort, and this whole myth of being part of this race after the AI, and we have to be there. So thank you. I would like to address you, Orit. You are the Minister of Innovation and Technology, and today you're the chairman of the Artificial Intelligence Committee in the Knesset. So you do know what the government is doing in this field. I guess you're very knowledgeable in that. I would like to ask you, what are the challenges that you see on the governmental level when it comes to promotion of high tech? So again, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I was a minister for a short period of time in Bennett's and Lapid government, and I think that pretty quickly it was clear, and really 2021 was the culmination of the development of high tech for many actual aspects, and I think that we did manage to survive COVID period with quite leading economical parameters. So yeah, now it is switched on. Well, I think because of Israeli high tech that paid threefold more taxes to the state. There were recruitments around IP. The vision was, in fact, to bring Israeli companies that will be here and to raise this growth of industry more and more. As a minister, when I started my term, and I started to work in this field, I saw that the challenges are very clear again, and some of them actually indeed you just touched upon. And if I can give a little bit of titles, it's in infrastructure. There's social gaps, of course, and there's a diversity. And indeed, obviously, that would be international aspects. And this conference, for example, is addressing it. When I talk about the infrastructure, again, we do talk about the fact that in the state of Israel, when we look at various semiconductors, or for example, we talk about the supercomputers that are required for the needs of the development of the AI, or the language that wasn't developed. The Hebrew language is not adjusted to the AI enough. We did start to ignite different processes that some of them were not expanded enough. They were not of a large scale, and some of them were way too slow. Another topic that I think really stood out was the human capital. When it comes to the human resource, we can see so many social gaps, but also the matters of Israel as an ecosystem for international talents. In two of those fields, we did invest a lot of effort. I actually created the committee headed by Daddy Perlmutter. It was a committee dedicated to the human capital that did emerge and became a resolution of the government that's called the National Plan of Human Resources in the State of Israel, with goals and objectives. Because what we did see, and you're all familiar with those figures, that in order for not all the children have the same opportunities in the state of Israel and the world of and realms of technology. It's quite dependent where did you grow up. Is it a peripheral area and you're not from the center of Tel Aviv? Your ability to actually to being targeted and then to find your way in those realms is very low. And this is where we did create a national plan. We did ignite it and created a program called the High-Tech Class together with the Ministry of Education, which was a very aspirational program. Within 5 years, a built-in mandatory curriculum from the kindergarten until the 8th grade. Children will study technology. It was quite a challenge, really. When it comes to searching for teachers, we really worked on that in the teachers' union agreement, so the high-tech people can actually come and teach. We need the consent of the teachers, and different centers that we created of physics in the peripheral area. And we did highlight the various targets on policy that we issued for the Authority of Innovation, integration of Arabs and women. Yeah, that's where we worked. And we have to say the truth. In the academic world, there is also a problem when it comes to artificial intelligence. The human resources are not diverse enough. If you read Ariel's work and you see the Chinese 5 years annual plan that subsidized academics and various expertise and specialties in the fields they found fit, that's what we started to build. And truthfully, I have to say the new government and the judicial overhaul and the war stopped many of those projects and those tendencies. And the third topic that I touched upon, that diversity as well. As had been said already before, the Israeli industry is very diverse in very certain areas when it comes to the clean tech. For example, energy, this is not our forte. And we try to ignite different projects that will diversify the focus of Israeli high-tech industry. But here I think the emphasis should be on strategy. And this is the main difficulty of the long-term policy. And when I look around and I look at the current budget and I see that they cut off all the investments into education, which human capital is the foundations of all. And I see the national plan of AI that myself and the Minister of Treasury then, Yvette Limerman, they cut it off in half, in fact. And there's no attention even or intent to supervise and to actually implement it. And when indeed really you can see that so many things that are actually stopped. And yeah, that's true, and we'll be probably talking about that representative of the Innovation Authority. There is a foundation that is helping startups. I don't understand why they actually emphasize only institutionals. But yeah, a certain backup given to the startups. Okay, I have no doubt, in fact, that no one is emphasizing enough high tech as an engine, and not just an engine, but also something that has a strategic security importance for the state of Israel on the level of, we don't always really understand that, but we should. And in this aspect, I do not think that we don't have enough money really when it comes to that, when it comes to security. I think there is a disruption in priorities of this government, a significant disruption. They found so much money for other things that are less value generating than continuation of reinforcement of high tech during those difficult days. And if I can just wrap it up, I think what really clearly seen right now, to what extent I will talk about that as well during the second round, because as the Minister of Technology, it was really clear to me that the American pressure upon China and etc. We did some things on this topic as well, by the way. But yeah, we must invest into infrastructure in Israel. You know very well that I started to work on the regulation. We joined the GPAC as when I was a Minister of Innovation, and I issued a draft of regulation. And only recently, in fact, they started to promote it in the government. But I do think as well, really, what I would like to see, in fact, I want to see more attention in more different fields in this current budget when it comes to high tech, because in the end of the day, Israel needs to rebuild its reputation as the superpower in technology. I think the judicial overhaul and war created here tremendous damage when it comes to level of certainty, and the event themselves really didn't very help everything that happened. Where was this whole technology when it happened? Yeah, we need to rebuild our reputation. I just want to ask you a short question. Michael is already, would like to jump in. I can see that. No. We did talk about that, and Ariel mentioned that as well. Not in your case, unfortunately, we didn't hear his comment. But the Americans that aspire towards the free market did decide recently to drop it slightly, and put it aside without involvement, and to build a model of supervision, or more supervision, at least in this field of high tech. What do you think about this model of governmental supervision that is tighter in this field? Actually, if I can take it into my experience, one of the things that we did see, for example, that because of different programs such as Horizon, there is an increasing impact of the European market upon our research, and we're weakening our ability to enjoy the infrastructure that exists in the United States that is tremendously expanded for our researchers. And this is because of the lack of satisfaction that was very prominent and very public between the governments, really, when the United States really expressed their discontent with the very fact that Israel is not supervising our technologies in this conflict with China. And we did introduce changes in the former government that I was part of. If you remember, there was a declaration of Jerusalem when Biden arrived to Israel. That is a part of it. It will include, and it didn't happen by chance. It was a result of a lot of work invested, that United States will increase the level of cooperation with Israel. But there was a but, and the but was that we actually went to Washington a number of times, and we ignited a work of two groups between the National Council of Security in Israel to work on trusted technologies and our policy together with the United States. We were also required to return and to re-examine our policy on the foreign investments into Israel. And yeah, they talk about the Haifa port and Tnuva. But when it comes to technology, it's even more sensitive if it comes. Well, it's definitely as sensitive as the Haifa port and the Tnuva. And there was work began that started there, but know that it didn't really move forward with the proper pace that is required at that point. But we have to say that this is a real deal. And I think, at least myself, I did learn one thing or two during this war. Israel needs to understand that when it comes to this matter, we need to be at the side of the Americans, at the American side, and we need to do what we have to do on this topic, so we can allow ourselves to actually benefit in the future. This amazing playground that exists in America as players that will have a full approach when it comes to those matters. So, Michael, you were so patient up to that point, but now it's your turn. Let's talk a little bit about the power between the superpowers. Two great superpowers investing capitals and into this battle tremendously large capitals, scientists, and etc. How Israel can find its own place in this competition between the superpower in the field of technology to benefit from it somehow? What do you think?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. And my two colleagues too, I also want to thank them. To this panel here. I think that we need to zoom out here. I think a bit differently from Yaara with regard to the artificial intelligence being like, no, I think it's more like nuclear. There are nuclear countries and there are non-nuclear states. There are AI states and there are states without AI. I think that this is the more correct conceptualization of artificial intelligence. Now, AI, even if it's extremely powerful and even if it sets different economies apart from each other, it will also set apart the different alliances. So there's the Western Alliance. I don't think it's really a Western Alliance, but there's one alliance that we call it the Western Alliance. There will be the North Korean, China, Russia, Iran, and the others, and that alliance too. In 2007, you wrote an article on why the state of Israel needs a CFIUS in order to prevent proliferation of technology from here to China, including ports and all kinds of other things. We, as a country, we weren't there in those two places. We didn't understand, and we weren't intelligent enough to understand that those friends, the alliance regarding the U.S. alliance, we also didn't really understand. We didn't realize that the AI race, just like is intricately tied to our textile family in Dimona. It's the same thing. It's tied to the idea that this is an investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment. It's an investment in our security, in our economy, and in our future, in our diplomatic future, and in our economic future. The first speaker said, to survive her. If we want to flourish here, we really need to invest in this issue. Now, we have advantages. In other words, the state of Israel is one of the only places in the world where they do semiconductor design at a very high level. And if anybody looks here at Intel or Apple or NVIDIA, there is a very high level of semiconductor design here. There's also production infrastructure, which is a great start. But we here I diverge from Michael. We're talking about infrastructure. It's like roads and trains and things like that, and ports and things like that. This is an infrastructure for growth for the future of Israel in the West. And if we want to be a flourishing part of this alliance, we absolutely must invest dramatically in this. Just like we think of nuclear and intersections and interchanges and trains. The United States, this is part of the understanding that we're being divided from, we were once a global world, but now we're a world of alliances. And this will affect supply chains, global supply chains, and it will affect our future. I'll reveal here, and I don't know if I'm supposed to do this here, but 2 years ago, when the head of I went to the head of the National Security Council. I don't know if we had already known each other back then or if we talked about it. And I say to him, you have to set up a plant that's not just Intel, but also a collaboration with another institute. I mentioned TSMC at that time, and it didn't go anywhere. This is the problem. There is there's no attention, and it's not just this government. It's not just an industry that's 18% of our economy. No, this is the state of Israel's strategic edge in terms of infrastructure. And until we understand this, unlike Orit, I feel like most of the ministers know how to run their WhatsApps, but when you start talking to them about AI and semiconductors, it's like speaking to them in Chinese. And this is a problem. Yisar Shai was here. Minister Yishai was here, but it should be the finance minister. It should be a prime minister's program. Or the minister of defense. This is our major event here, and this is really our place in the future of the world. We'll never 100 million people. Let's hope to reach 20 million in another decade and a half, but we won't be 100 million people. We have to compete over the infrastructure, the intelligence, and the deep understanding. We need a conceptualization that should outstep these other people. And just to relate to what Orit said a few moments ago, it's not just this budget, and I think that what they do with the $1.5 billion shekels and the individual authority isn't in the right direction, particularly when it comes to what we're talking about now. We have a half trillion shekel budget, and that's already a number. We have that number. The problem is that it's not clear how we divide that up. Instead of going back to 1948 and saying, let's start from scratch. What are the needs? What are our targets in the state of Israel? What kind of state do we want? What kind of AI do we have to create fundamentally? What do we want to achieve here? We always say, oh, we have to cut 0.5% from here, from there, or $1 billion shekels here or that. That's not a way of operating in 2024. You can't speak like that in 2024. You have to start to invest once more in Israel's competitive edge. So you're saying that half a trillion shekel won't be enough? Of course it is enough. And here I also diverge a bit from Yaara here too. I don't think the dependence on foreign investments. Look, since the war broke out, $150 million were invested in Aleph. In the next round, this 150. There's a lot of money flowing in here, and we can leverage this through public partnerships. And if we're going to institutions that have a lot of money to invest in that, just like they can buy data center bonds and fiber optics bonds and building chip factories. There's plenty of money for this, and you need to start to invest that money. Mass is a lot of money. It's possible, and that will give a future to this economy. Look, we have time for a very short round. Everybody will get 1 minute. I'll start with you, Yaara. If you're the counselor, the advisor to the government that will be established now, or are there elections coming up? I've already set up a government. Theoretically, I just advise the first thing that you say to do.
So first of all, I think when it comes to strategy, to create a strategy where they take into account all the deepest aspects when we talk about artificial intelligence, we need to obviously look for inspiration at the European Union, high-risk technologies that actually should not be part, such as, for example, emotion recognition through the photo of a person, in-depth strategy, not for here and now, but for the aspect of development of technology in the future. And to create some kind of scenarios of uncertainty, not just that AI working in routine. What happens when it doesn't really work? What happens when there's some kind of dramatic change or a crisis? That's one thing. Secondly, and again, really you mentioned it here, in this aspect, the literacy, AI literacy, which is also an important aspect. We do have powerful technologies. AI is a tremendously powerful technology when it comes to streamlining and efficiency and the increase of level of quality when it comes to the output. But what we still do not have is this education of how to use AI in a beneficial, wise and transparent and damaging manner, and the concepts or the gaps that we talk about different groups of population. AI has this power of actually closing those gaps, but it will not highlight the literacy in the field of AI, of how to use it properly, and the regulation and all the different arrangements. For example, AI in schools and in other institutions of that sort. We will not benefit from the power of AI to limit the gaps, and it will create actually the other expansion of the inequality that is existing right now. And the opening of data, governmental data of the ministries to facilitate and allow the researchers and to the companies to use data. This is a significant and dramatic aspect. And in this context, allocation of research and the researchers that will not go outside to other countries but will stay here, allocation of budgets for research. That's true. Michael, can you characterize the technologies, the future technologies in your eyes that Israel has to focus upon?
Okay, before I do that, I would like to comment on what Yaara said. I agree with the last things that she said, but I think very differently with regard to drawing closer to what the Europeans are doing. Look at where the next best thing in technology is coming in. It's most 70% coming from the United States, not Europe. It's the entrepreneurial spirit And what the Europeans do is only setting their status as when you limit AI, they think that they're living in some kind of an island. There are Chinese, there are Americans. The world is going forward. We can't do this to ourselves. We must accelerate and not think too much about it. We do have to ask the question of what are the special Israeli values that we're inserting into this. And I think that just like you have, and I said this several times in the past, you have like the purity of arms doctrine in the military, you need a unique Israeli doctrine for this as well. So when you ask me what the technologies are, the basic technologies are basically combining AI with what's called physical sciences, physics, technology, and chemistry that can create incredible things here, whether it's synthetic biology. And there, the country needs to invest in a lot of money in the infrastructure, not in the companies, but in the infrastructure, in AI and energy. And I'll say one more thing. We are getting a bit set on Elbit, Rafael, and Elta and the Israel aircraft industries. We have to build a new agile military industry, and our foundation is investing in it. This is giving us something new in our current budget, but this requires massive investments in infrastructure that need to be advanced. And in general, generally speaking, we need to depart. We have to come out of this as a small country. We could have done lots of things here. It's not just about keeping scientists here. We can really draw scientists to Israel. We can really draw them here. We have to work on that. We have to set objectives. We have to be measurable. And we have to, when the government's failed, we have to be able to say, we failed. This was the objective, and this is what we're heading for. And the public, people go on to the next item on the agenda when the objectives aren't met. Most of those objectives weren't met because people were dismissed. Some of this can be about budgets, but you can also have a digitization that can be measured. That's measurable, and that's how you can open up more budgets for future investments.
So after I already created the government, now I'm appointing a next minister. But we don't need actually the Minister of Innovation. Should be Minister of Finance. Okay, the most important minister in this field, what would you do as a minister in the new government, theoretical government we have? Look, I think that we all understand that there's a lot of things that need to be amended. There's so many things that we have to fix. We are currently experiencing a war and military challenges and security strategic ones. Now we have more than 140,000 inhabitants that are evacuated from their own homes, uncertainty in the north. I think, as Michael mentioned right now, first of all, as far as I'm concerned, the government will have to change completely their priorities, absolutely the order of priorities. As the last budget really was completely disrupted if it comes to priorities. They didn't take money and put all of it into war or into the home front or evacuate it. They didn't emphasize the north. It's all the resurrection in the south, which is very important. But there is an event in the north that is actually quite dramatic. People that don't even know how will it unfold, how will it evolve, and there is no attention paid to the north. And we need to build the whole ministry based on where we want to go. But I think that we'll have a lot of work of rehabilitation, actually, of rebuilding infrastructure. Look at this budget that has been ratified right now. They cut high tech. They want to cut the budgets of the chief scientists. The chief scientist, for example, the Minister of Energy. This is such a vital matter dedicated to the field. No, this is not a substitute to the general fund of the Authority of Innovation. No. But we'll have to build anew the budgets, I think, at least of all the ministries. And also pay attention that in the current budget, according to the understanding, they just wanted to tighten the belt, on coalition money. We do talk about high tech, but we have to remember that government increased actually the actual incentives of not to study core studies, STEM studies in Israel. I think it exceeds the topic of our gathering here. But the state of Israel won't be able to exist economically using the current economical model of inequality of the burden. When we talk about the prolonging the military service, rising the age of exempt from the reservist service, and the dramatic the budget, the security budget will be increased dramatically for a long term. You won't be able to succeed and to go through this event. Only one part of the people paying taxes, and some are moving into very opposite direction of working or paying taxes. And another matter, it doesn't exist in the budget, by the way. By the way, the budgetary department, they say, no, this is not the time to do that. I disagree with them, by the way. They say that there is absolutely no any engines of growth. Michael just mentioned that, and rightfully so, that infrastructure he mentioned. But there are other different projects of infrastructure that could have been a growth engines, and many of them don't require actually governmental budget when you have tenders, such as, for example, for highways or in energy. And maybe in the topic that you mentioned as well, you build a model. Entrepreneurs will be living from the outputs, different models that exist that are really pays off for all the parties. And this is missing completely from the budget. And we need to tell the truth. I had a discussion, the budgetary department thought that we just need to tighten the belt and that's it. Yeah, so briefly speaking, you're not optimistic at that point. Thank you so much. We need to see this difficulty as an opportunity. We don't have a choice. We need to fix things. So let's summarize this panel, and thank you all, guys.